Love it or hate it. This week we're discussing free-to-play monetization with Chris Cross from Nexon America. We discuss the best and worst ways to monetize free-to-play games, how Chris evaluates which games to sign at Nexon, and how you can both learn game development and see Chris in his bathrobe at the same time.
From jollygoodjobs.com, it's the Jolly Good Show, discussing the games industry and life within it. Here's your host, Mark Pope.
Hello and welcome to the Jolly Good Show. Joining me this week is Chris Cross from Nexon America. Hey Chris, how's it going?
Good, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm good. So I'll just give a bit of background. Chris has been working in games for 20 years. He started as a tester at Blizzard and then worked his way up. You've also worked at DreamWorks, EA, THQ, and some independent ventures. And your job titles have included things like game designer, game director, creative director, basically senior game design director type person. And for the last 3 years, you've been at Nexon as a creative director. So did I get all that correct?
Yeah, mostly. Basically, the reason that I've had so many titles is it's hard to define a career path for game designers once they get into the upper ranks without promoting them into a production position. Right, like an EP or something like that. So creative director is probably the closest thing, but I've always been a game designer at heart.
So what do you do? What's a creative director then do at Nexon? What are you doing there?
So what I'm doing at Nexon is it's actually very interesting. So Nexon America is a free-to-play company, and so game design is not a totally different thing, but it's expressed a little differently because the games are live, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I've been focused on for the last year is monetization, game design, and adapting or teaching Western companies how to adapt their box product process into a free-to-play process, mm-hmm. right? Which is a little different. But for different studios, it's been a different take. So that my first year was basically learning as much about free-to-play as I could so that I can see the parallels in game design and where to, how best to lead different companies to their best monetization, because it's not a cookie cutter pattern.
Mm-hmm. I've got to say, free to play is not my favorite. Well, actually, my view on it's been changing because, I don't like the idea of this game is going to constantly ask me for more money. But then, and I felt that way for a while, and then I thought back, wait a second, my whole childhood, I would go to these arcades and just be putting in, well, it was England, so it was 10p after 10p or more.
Sure.
And it wasn't pay a bit and then you can play for a week and you can carry on playing for free if you wish. It's give me 10p and then mess up at Ghouls and Goblins or something, Ghosts and Goblins and there.
Oh.
And then it's give me another 10p and don't put your wallet away. Just keep it right there. Right.
Well, and that's part of, you and I are a similar age. That's part of my, the video game equivalent of the Tennessee Sniper, right? I've only got so many quarters. I got to make them last, so I better get good, right? Yeah. So that's how I got into games. Was I was an arcade rat. And what's interesting about what you bring up is free to play is actually an evolution more from the arcade era than it is from the box product era, mm-hmm. right? So if you talk to one of these days, do you know Noah Falstein?
No.
So he's been around a long time, and he designed Sinistar. Okay. And so I would, he's my first mentor, basically, mm-hmm. As far as how to be a lead game designer, not just, make cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting that, in the arcade days, monetization was measured in 15-second quarter drop increments, right? So for 30 seconds, you wouldn't be pressured, but after that 30 seconds, their success from a business standpoint was, can we get a quarter per 15-second increments, right? And so the game was tuned and designed in such a way that it would ramp according to these 15-second increments, right? But for free to play is basically almost like a fractal of that. Like we're now talking about weeks and months, right? So here's a couple of interesting stats for you. And this is apocryphal and hearsay, but it's pretty. I say it seems about right from what I see at Nexon. Is most people don't monetize in League of Legends for something like 70 hours.
Wow!
Right?
Of actual play.
Of actual play. Hanging out, and this is what's interesting about free to play games is the most successful ones are actually the ones that are at least useful, if not entertaining, to hang out in, right? So the game, the front end of it is absolutely part of the world or part of the game, right? And so I think that's why, World of Warcraft, just as an MMO example, it was cool to just be in the world, right? And so, I would love to nuke and pave World of Warcraft and make it into a free-to-play game, but it really comes down to now, like, the sophistication of what's valuable to you in games is not just 3 lives, right? And just the fantasy of being there for 15 seconds. Like, it's now, how do I sustain you for days, for months? Yeah, I can see you sort of chewing on that.
Yeah, I'm like, so what kind of things monetize well then? I know like costumes and such do well in League of Legends, and is that what you mean, that you're not sort of going directly to, like, you're paying for your time in here, but you're
yeah. So there's like the last year and a half, we stole a guy from Goldman Sachs, and he and I sat down and started doing value equations on what are people buying and why is it valuable. Not so much, let's fill the inventory with random crap and see what hits. It's like, can we approach this from a design standpoint ahead of time and predict what's valuable to people, and not just lump them into, well, this is vanity content and this is that, and make it a little bit more of a integrated reward process, right? And hit basically the things that people are going to want, as opposed to when they want it, it's there for them, right? As opposed to jamming purchases at them from the start. So the player lifetime matched with what their personality is, what they're going to want, and then do we have that offering, right?
So can you give me like a concrete example of what you came up with, and then how that went into a game, and like how it turned out?
So I can actually give you a concrete example of part of this fact finding and what already exists, right? So there's 2. One of them, Combat Arms, is in a very what's the right word? They have a very caustic community, right?
Okay.
And part of the reason for that and the health of that game is because they only have what we call gameplay advantage goods, right?
Like pay to win kind of stuff?
It's essentially pay to win.
Okay.
So like, actually the game is a lot less pay to win, but the perception is that it's pay to win. And so the players think that just buying better guns makes you better.
Okay, and that makes them kind of a bit angry with each other, because it's like, oh, you're just cheating by paying.
Right.
Okay.
You're winning because you have an Orthus 3000 or whatever it is.
Okay.
Like there's one gun like that. Like basically what happens is a guy shows up and into the sort of matchmaking room. They see that he has this, like, what is perceived to be the uber powerful gun, and he gets kicked.
Okay.
Right. And so what's interesting is that the reasons to buy things is so much more weighed in with the social aspect and the sort of perception of what's going on, because it is an online game and it's a community that you hang out with, that you have to take those things into consideration. So fixing that community and economy is nigh impossible without being able to go back and change the structure of monetization. And so from that, then we go to another game where almost, say, like a 30% of the income is underwear, right?
And this is not some like wacky Japanese game.
Well, it's a wacky Korean game.
Oh, okay, there we go.
But it's not just about underwear. The thing is like your character's armor gets knocked off in gameplay, right?
Okay.
And so male or female, it doesn't matter. But if you've got the stock underwear, it looks terrible, right? And it's kind of by design. So you want to have the better looking underwear for those times when and the thing is, it's not necessarily just a vanity thing, but it's a when the character is an avatar that represents you, right? You put yourself into it and you're like, oh, I would never wear those crappy boxers if I knew that my armor was going to get knocked off, right? The other thing that sells very well is dye ampules, right? And there are things about that are a little bit aggressive in black hat monetization. Basically, you can custom color your armor, right?
Okay.
All of your clothes and whatnot with the dye, but what makes it black hat is it's you can't just buy green. You buy things that may be green. It's a gamble.
It's like a blind pack. You don't know what dye you're getting.
Kind of. You know that it's within these two RGB ranges. But it's not. You're not going to know until like you actually buy it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So it's like it's gamified the sort of shopping experience, right?
Right. It's kind of like almost like a gambling thing of like you don't know what you're going to get. You might work out well.
It is. It's the gachapon version of how to buy like custom colors, right?
Uh-huh.
But what the social result of that is when you see somebody in a completely matching outfit. Right, that's like totally custom to what they intended it to be. You know that they spent hours on it.
Right.
And so there's a couple of different things there. Their time is value, and other people can see their time value of like, wow, that guy put a lot of work into that. It's like seeing like a hand painted car, right? You're like, wow, a lot of work went into that. I don't know if I like it.
And I imagine the community for that is a lot more fun and less caustic because people are more like, wow, you did well with that one there, and they actually probably like encourage each other to spend by saying like, oh, you did well with that, and then they're like, oh yeah, I got this positive praise from a peer. I'm going to do that. I'm going to buy more outfits now, and yeah, okay,
yeah, totally. So there's a whole cosplay site for that game that it's called Vindictus, by the way, and it's like God of War MMO,
but with removable armor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fight epic monsters and your armor can get knocked off and whatever. That's
cool, by the way. I like. I kind of want to play.
Yeah, it's a weird driver, but it makes sense. Like from a purely humanistic standpoint, right? You're like, oh man, I look like shit. Right, I'm gonna fix that. Wow, I look terrible. So, but the other thing is, people have done like full cosplays in the game. Like I saw. Like the big hulking character, like imagine like somebody with the proportions of like the Hulk.
Okay.
Right. He's like 7 heads tall, 3 feet across at the traps, right? Like another 3 feet across at the shoulders. But he's also the kind of the right proportions for like a kid cartoon character. He's just like as if you universally scaled him.
Okay.
And so somebody took that frame and made him look like Dora the Explorer. Right. I've seen Superman, Batman, other sort of copywritten characters that people have made, like they had meticulous amounts of time getting them capes and coloring the outfit just right. And like, certain eras of Superman, like, 1960s Batman or like whatever. So like the ability to customize is really powerful because like I said, the connection to self in your avatar is a strong driver. And that's why vanity items, or our gameplay variety, right? Like they give you a strong sense of self in the game. Mm-hmm. So, like getting into these psychological drivers is what I've been doing for like the last year and a half of, you can't really tack some of this stuff on later. Mm-hmm. Like if I said, man, we need to sell underwear, right? But what would make it really powerful is if you could knock the armor off. Like your devs would go crazy. Right? They're like, no, right? Like that has to happen early on of like, here's the game feature of when you can visibly see that your armor is getting knocked off so that you're losing health and armor. The opportunity for monetization happened. In the organic process. So you have to start at the beginning, right? And know what feature set you're going to have in the game so that you can have those opportunities, and it fits in the natural loop. Because when you tack stuff on sideways, it's clearly obvious.
Right. So,
right?
You and the guy from Goldman Sachs, work out these monetization ideas. And are you doing that because you're designing games, or are you evaluating games, or what is it? What is it that you're using this for?
So he and I sit down when new games come in. We look at the pitches, and then if they get signed, we start to work with their game designers right away. So he provides the hard data of this is what's selling now, this is what's going on. Then he and I look at the natural game reward loops in the core design, and then look for the ways that it's going to extend into a monetization system. And then we basically have a checklist of by the time we get to determining inventory for the store, do we have a full list that's going to appeal to our system, mm-hmm. right?
So just to take a step back, so Nexon is a publisher, and you've got smaller sort of devs coming to you either with concepts for games or partly made games,
yes.
looking for you to publish it, and then you're going to evaluate the game to see whether you think it's going to work well and sell well, basically.
Yeah, and it's not, and also if basically run the numbers on how costly it is to run the game as well. Mm-hmm. It's interesting when people bring pitches in, how fast it gets to, okay, well, what's your CCU per core? Right? It goes there.
So CCU?
Concurrent users.
Oh,
so
okay.
How many concurrent users per network core
uh-huh.
can you put on? Because your efficiency in network code makes a difference on the bottom line.
Right.
How many servers do we have to run? Where do we have to run them? Can they run virtually, or do we run them on metal? Right. And by metal, I mean physical servers.
I see. And so before you get to that part of performance, kind of when someone comes in with a game, because everyone's got an idea for a game kind of thing, or that
sure.
they'd like to make kind of thing. What kind of checklist do you have for working out whether a game's good?
Well, so first I look in at, okay, what's the core fantasy that you're going for, right? And a lot of people don't have a hard time hitting that. 8 people lost on an island have to survive. Are they going to work together or not? There's a simple concept, right, for a multiplayer game. And then we take that. Then I look and see how deeply they've gone through their design, mm-hmm. right? How far have they taken that core sort of concept and extended it? So the things that I'm looking for is repeatability. Is this a game that I want to play? Let's say a play session is 15 minutes. Do I want to play it 8 times tonight? Right? Okay. Is this something that I'm going to get? And is there a meta game there? And by meta game, I mean an overarching reward system that makes me want to play 8 games tonight. Am I going to get something out of that? Right? Mm-hmm. More than just it was fun once. Is it going to be fun again? Is basically I need some way to track my own progress as a player, mm-hmm. right? And so, like I said, this is the incremental fractal of the 15-second quarter drop of now let's take it to the 2-hour place of do I want to drop another quarter to go again, right? And it doesn't have to be monetized, but even for free, is it something that I want to play, right? So it ends up making your game design really, really tight because I think of a box product game, and the sort of sales loop or the lifetime of the customer is you attract them, right? You convert them at the store, and by conversion I mean make a sale, mm-hmm. right? And then you retain them once you get it home. And so the tighter your game design, the more people will finish your game, right? But you and I both know that a typical average stat for people finishing box product games is something like 10%. Do 100% completion because the fantasy got sold. You made it in 18 months and you sort of finished it out, right? In free to play, it's actually you reverse the retain and convert. So you have to do attract is the fantasy enough. Retain, can I retain them for 80 hours so that sometime in that in there they will make a conversion, right? And then convert. So the retention loop has to be super strong in your game. Like, not only do I want to play one more time, I want to play like 100 more times, right? So all of the design focus comes to that of like, how do I hold you for 100 hours?
That sounds very difficult when you put it that way.
Yeah. So and for free, right? So if I'm going to hold you for 100 hours for free, I can't, like, people chew content like candy. They will chew through content. So like, I can't make like the longer box product games in the PS2 era were 20 to 40 hours, right? But if I need to sustain 100 hours, think about making a PS2 game twice. Right, or 4 times, or 5 times.
So,
right.
So you can't make like a 3D platformer where you're running through levels. Yeah.
Right. It would have to be, you would have to come back to solve that problem again, kind of like a roguelike.
Right. Okay. So you could go. So that means like procedurally generated.
Correct. Yeah, okay. Right. Procedurally generated and something a little bit different every time to get you coming back. Right. That's a content solution, right? And so we can come up with content solutions to hit 100 hours of gameplay, but at some point you're going to get onto what I call the content treadmill, right? So let's say that's our plan, and we shipped with 10 hours of gameplay, and then call it end game, right? We would then be playing catch up for a couple years to try and get to about 100 hours of content, like with updates and releases and DLC and stuff like that, but all for free. Okay. Right. So we'd need to convert. But did you play World of Warcraft at all?
No.
So there's 2 games there. There's like back in the early days when there was a level cap of 50, it was a 50 level tutorial to teach you how to play the end game, like 40-man raids and the PvP and all that other stuff. Right. Because that's what, like, it's like a water slide that takes you into like this pool that you can just kind of hang out in. Right. But you're not going to hang out there until you know all of your own powers.
I see. Okay.
Right? And set your own goals at that point. So like when you're ready to set your own goals as a personal thing, as a personal, like, this is what's going to make me happy, then you've got all the options in the world at that point.
So,
right?
so it goes kind of like linear curated content and then switches to open world, kind of do what you want.
That's my argument in like the structure of that, right? Now, is it expressed like that? You don't feel like it's expressed like that, right? You feel like you're on a grand adventure, and then you get there, and then you're like, oh, there's a guy in town. He's yelling, "I've got whatever purple trousers for sale," and then it turns into a social game, right? It's slightly different though when you're talking about, say, like a match-based competitive game like League of Legends or Combat Arms, or like, let's say, Call of Duty multiplayer, right? Call of Duty multiplayer is single player with jerks, right? So like their reward system is actually really tight. You hardly ever play a match without getting an achievement, a badge, something like that. Taking Call of Duty and going to free to play seems like it would be really easy, right? But I know that it's not exactly going well in China, Call of Duty Online, right? But I think there's a couple of different things there. Is like the way they're monetizing, and also that the going across the ocean to a different culture is a very difficult sort of business endeavor.
They should totally do underwear, and your armor falls off.
Yeah, right.
I've got this down now. I'm good.
I've got this down. Yeah, exactly. It would be the when you get fragged. Every time you get killed, they can come over to your body and then like hit the button and all your clothes get ripped off, and then they look at your underwear, right? You don't want to be embarrassed with crappy underwear. Yeah. They take a picture and it gets sent to you. Anyway, so it's that kind of thought process that comes into the pitch, right? Of like, how are they going to sustain 100 hours? In fact, I've actually asked, all right, what am I going to do, 1 month into gameplay, 3 months into gameplay, 5 months into gameplay, right? And we have a term called churning, right? Which is when people lapse out of the game. And so like from a business, like every player has a lifetime. It's very rare to get somebody that stays with you for 5 years, right? Generally, it happens, but it's more about, it's not so much about the content. right? And so that's one of my check questions for developers is, what's your plan for the next 5 years, right? And if they just keep hitting me with content plans, then I know that they're only thinking, in the old way, right? Whereas like the teams that are usually most successful with their pitches talk about building communities.
Yeah.
Because the community energy will sustain a lot heavier.
I've played, quite a few little free-to-play games, and play them for a bit and then stop. I'm just this conversation is making me think of like, what have I played a lot? And there's two games that I've been playing for probably 5 years now, and like I play Free Cell, like the solitaire game.
Uh-huh.
I just play that every day. Like I don't know whether I'd be able to have a bowel movement if I wasn't playing Free Cell. TMI? I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, I think that is TMI.
It's threes for me. Threes.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And the other one is Words with Friends, like Scrabble, basically. Like I play my friend in England and my sister, and it can be up to a week between turns. Like, it's very kind of like relaxed game, but it's not so much the game. It's that it's got a chat window and we can chat back and forth. So it's the way that I keep in touch with my sister and my buddy, and the game's kind of incidental to it. Actually with my buddy, we sort of chat more than we play. And with my sister, it's like we play more than we chat. But, I'm really surprised because before that, I was not like great at English. And, when I was young and someone suggested Scrabble, I would run from the room, like, never interested in Scrabble.
Sure.
But I picked up Words with Friends and got really into it. I'm actually pretty good at Scrabble now. Helps that my buddy is really good. Like I was playing him for a few months, and then I was like, you're just winning relentlessly. Like, are you cheating? And I think he was kind of a little offended. And then he was like, well, when I was young, I'd go around to my grandma's house and she'd make me play Scrabble every weekend. And so, like, to this day, he's wiping the floor with me every time. But playing him because he's so good at it, has actually like leveled up my game quite a lot. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how I got good at Street Fighter.
Oh yeah.
Was getting beat. Like you play people who are better than you so that you sort of level up to them, right?
Right.
You sort of, you try to learn to play at their level. Well, it's interesting because Scrabble, I actually am pretty good with words and doing things, and but the competitiveness of Scrabble doesn't appeal to me because it's there's so much game theory going on of like, what letters do you have, and what do I have, and there's I'm like, oh my god, I'd rather play poker because poker is a simple game, but it's all about people, right?
Right. I think though, like the reason I mentioned it was a consistent thing you've been saying is like, you've got to get people to stay in for 100 hours or months.
Sure.
And those social ties, whether it's standing out in the group and having the best underwear, or whether it's chatting with your friend, or Candy Crush, kind of like, oh, I can help out my buddy by sending them some object, or I mean, I know this is not a new idea, but that social part to me seems like a fundamental thing that needs to be there for free to play to really succeed. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, for a long time, it was basically our top pillar for the company was building communities that sustain.
Right.
Right. The game is not incidental, like you have to, but it has to facilitate building a community around itself. Right. And don't go after making an esport game right off the bat because you don't know whether your community is going to stick with you. Right. Like you can't, like you if you don't have the community hooks for people to hang out and be there and talk about it and do different things, then it'll die. You'll get people in, like this is what happened early on with like some early content games, is people show up, the new content shows up, they chew it up, you get 10,000 users per hour for a weekend, and then they're gone. And then you have like, if they're not there, you can't actually make money off them, right? So they're out. They're not hanging out. Like it was basically a spiky sort of user graph, right, of how many people were playing. It was like content came out, spiked down almost to zero, right? And so if there's not a reason for them to hang out besides content, you end up having like, from a business standpoint, no customers.
I find it quite a nice idea that what people are doing is building community and sort of sticking with it. You get the press kind of saying like, kids playing video games is harming their minds and turning them into killers or whatever. And then, but you look at games and what games are successful, and really what's going on is a lot of community building.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nature of the game determines whether or not it's a acidic community or whether or not it's a supportive community, right? So we have a game called Mabinogi that think of it as Ultima Online anime in 3D, but with no level caps.
No level caps? What do you mean? Sorry.
Yeah. So in Ultima Online, the more you used a skill, it would advance, right? Okay. So if you hit a tree, eventually you would level up.
Oh, got you.
Right?
Okay.
So like as you continue to use something, it would level up, but it would cap. I forget what the caps were. Like basically, your power would cap at some point,
okay,
and then it became a game.
You become expert at. Oh, I suppose you could become expert at everything, or.
Right, and so but they would all cap, right? But they would also decay over time. So you had to sort of put the work in to keep. Like, let's say it was level 100 was the cap. To stay at 100, you had to continually put in the sort of whatever the logarithmic equivalent of the determined hours to keep you at 100.
Okay.
Right. And so it was a pain in the ass. It was always an exercise in entropy. Oh. Right. So like it's basically you were always losing your levels, and you always try to keep it there, and you capped. So Mabinogi actually has no level cap for any of the skills. Right. At some point, they become unattainable because you just don't have the hours to put into it. Okay. Right. Or, I mean, you could. It would just take you, like, at some point, you're going to die before you can make the next level.
Okay.
Right. Like, it's just, the reality of the situation is it does cap. But removing the concept of a level cap and removing the idea that they decay, right? So everything that you do is pushing you forward towards infinity, right? Okay. So essentially what's happened is you can chew up all the content, but really people compare themselves on like what skill level they are, right? And there's like 100 skills. And they technically don't cap. So what I'm saying to you is there's no end.
Okay. Yeah. So avoid building a game that's got this finite end to it
Well, but it's interesting psychologically what it does for you is because there's no end or there's no end goal, right? It's all about what I'm doing in the world in my comparison to everybody else. It completely takes the pressure off of trying to chew up the content, right? It turned it into a completely social game where I look like my favorite Sword Art Online character because I went to all the trouble to do that, and I'm going to exist and hang out in town and do different things. And looking at the community, it's very interesting that the people that do hang out in towns are super interesting, right? Like there's a whole music composition system in there. And, I went to the middle of town and hit my dance emote, and then like an instant dance party like sprung up because people sort of ran over and they're like, oh, hey, someone's dancing. And then a couple people started playing their instruments, and Poker Face by Lady Gaga was coming across from 3 different people playing different instruments who knew how to sync it. And it was fantastic. It was absolutely amazing, especially since I knew that writing the music isn't just about putting the notes on paper. You could fail at it. Right? So it was your music skill in game that allowed you to have like a successfully write the music or whatever. And it was like that person must have put like 100 hours into being able to actually put the music down and play it on their wood recorder in the game. And it was like this weird thing where like I knew that all these people around me had put in hundreds of hours of gameplay and were totally willing to just hang out in town. Right? Because there was no quote unquote end goal, right? There was no I'm like, when I get to this, I'm going to be amazing, right? It was like, I'm pretty happy to just go out here and chop wood so that I can be a badass lumberjack, right? Like that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be the most awesome like anime chef ever.
I think one thing I'm getting here is that if you allow people to be creative in the game, whether it's customizing underwear or be able to record some music, that really like opens the door to spending a whole lot of time there and potentially monetization.
Absolutely. And in fact, the more you allow people to express themselves in the game and be there and to interact in the ways that they like to interact, the longer they'll hang out and the more that they will start to figure out, they're like, oh, you know what I need right now? I wish I had this. And it's that design process of trying to predict when they get to that point, what is it that they're going to say? Oh, I wish I had one of these, right? And that's the hard part. That's the hard part of the monetization design. I honestly, for most games, it's not that hard. It's like if you take a shooter, right? At some point, there's essentially three categories of monetization items. There's gameplay advantage, right? Gameplay variety, and vanity, right? Which is also self-expression. So gameplay advantage, you almost
buying the BFG.
Correct. Buying the BFG, you're buying an awesome shotgun. Right. Let's just say, right? You usually the fair way to do it is everybody can have it if they put in the time.
Okay.
So you spend time and skill on getting gameplay advantage, right? And then you can gate that by leveling or achievements or different things like that. Gameplay variety is completely okay to have a crossover currency thing. So in-game free currency and paid currency, because then you can speed up for variety, right? And variety being something like this is the worst example, but okay. So actually, let's take the shotgun. We use the shotgun as an example. It's like it's a cone spread or it's a flat spread, right? And arguably, there's some advantage to the differences in that, but maybe it's just a variety kind of a thing. So once you get the shotgun, you can grind your way. And I hate using the word grind, but that's what I think people will understand that. To all the different varieties of shotgun, right? But if you want to speed that up, we'll let you pay for it to get to, because already that you like the, like the multiple shot fire shotgun, right? And you just don't want to spend the next 60 hours doing it. I'm going to play like that right now. Let me have it. And actually ask me about grind after this, because I'll tell you why I don't like it. The other one is gameplay vanity, right? Which is like, self-expression. Now I want flames on my shotgun, right? The way to make it really valuable is you actually can only pay for that with real money, right? And it's totally vanity. It's not necessarily for gameplay, right? One of the things that's become clear to me in free-to-play is there is a large percentage of our customers that actually can't afford $10 a month or $5 a month or like a really small sum of money. But the challenge over the last couple of years was not in how to squeeze people for cash, because that's actually easy, right? Going after the whales, going after people that have lots of expendable income is actually relatively simple. But making people feel valued and an integral part of the community when they have less to spend is the hard part, right? But that's how you create a healthy social economy, is that everybody is valued as if they're equals, right? And not making whales, right, more important, or VIPs. You can still make them VIPs, but you don't make them the cornerstone of your society, right? And then the other side of that is, this is why I don't like grind as a terminology for this. And most people will refer to grind currency, which is the currency that you get in the game that you spend on essentially the free stuff, right? The word grind already has negative connotations. That means that I'm going to withhold something from you, right, until you grind it out, right? And basically, I'm putting a task to you that's not fun,
right,
as a designer. And what I'd rather do is think about it as a reward system. Oh my God, I'm appreciative that you've spent 100 hours with us. Please have this, right? And so when you think about it from that sort of headspace and appreciate every customer as opposed to quote unquote grind it out, it's just it brings it allows you to fill the your inventory with, instead of time markers, it allows you to have things that make people feel appreciated, right? Like, thank you for your 100 hours of gameplay. Here you go. Right? And it's purely it does. It sounds really subtle, but the types of items that you come up with that from that headspace usually have more value, and you're willing to give more to somebody when you're acknowledging the fact that they've given you the most precious resource in life, which is time. It's non-renewable. You're never going to get it back. Like having appreciation for people spending their time with you needs to be elevated above people spending money.
It seems like a really kind of subtle or semantic thing. It kind of reminds me of the whole, smile when you're on the phone to somebody, because it changes the conversation,
Yeah.
which kind of doesn't make sense when you think about it. I'm just tightening my facial muscles and I may be forcing a smile, but it does make a difference. But I like that you approach it with a different mindset.
You're right. It is like smiling when you're on the phone. And like, you start to think of more fun ways to sort of deliver things, how you interact with the player, right? And, how you, delivery in a business actually makes a huge amount of difference in how you feel about the service that you got, right? If you go to a restaurant and somebody never smiles and they throw your food down on the table, etc., you're not likely to go back, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is where we start to talk about free-to-play games as a service, is like you start to run that service and appreciate your free players, right? So think about it this way. There is a direct analogy to running a free-to-play restaurant, right? So let's say that we're going to open up a taco shack, mm-hmm. right? We're going to give all our tacos away for free. Now, but how are we going to squeeze our money out of it is, the base taco has lettuce, cheese, and meat. If you want anything else, you're going to have to charge for it, right? It's like, if you want anything besides a basic taco, here's all the other ingredients, right? That's one way to go about it. The other one is like, you know what? All the ingredients are free. We'll make you any taco that you want, but, it's only one per hour, right? That's the energy sort of system, right? Etc. Now, the things that are going to affect that and make you decide on your business case is like, how are you going to run the front of house and how are you going to run the back of house? How many tacos can you make in a day, right? How many people can you seat and how fast can you get them in and out, etc. Mm-hmm. And so your business case starts to kind of change. And like, I like to say that before we started really looking at it, the old Nexon was a hamburger shop that gave you hamburgers and French fries for free, right? They were really salty and water was $10, right? Whereas like, the new way of approaching it is like, wow, you're a valued customer. You show up here every day, right? Not only do you get a free hamburger today, but free French fries and a premium drink. Do you see how I'm kind of getting that? And here's a coupon book to bring 3 friends.
Okay.
Right. And because like, oh yeah, well, now that person starts to have all of their business meetings there, right? And they've brought 3 more friends and they become fans, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So like the money that you're outlaying, like your P&L for everything, isn't just the hamburgers, right? Your P&L turns into a little bit of marketing, a little bit of front of house, and how fast you can see people and get them moving. Like the equation becomes a little bit more complex, because like one of the most powerful things in free to play is social, period. So it's also one of the most valuable. Here's 2 examples. So League of Legends, the reason why it's going to be extremely difficult for anybody to knock them off their seat, right? Like if you wanted to completely obliterate League of Legends, you would probably have to spend 6 years building the game before you even get into launch. And this is the reason why. If you launch the game right now with every feature that they have, right? Oh, exactly the same, except that it's whatever, pirates and ninjas, right? Only, or some change on the fantasy, you would fail. This is because it's not just bringing over the people that like pirates and ninjas to get them to we call it switching cost, right? To have them switch games. You would have to drag all 10 of their friends. Right. You would have to get all of their whole community to switch to your game and stick. So to do that, you have to exceed League of Legends features, and especially in the social aspect, right? It would have to be more fun to hang out in your game and more fun to play it. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about like replacing their gameplay with something that's slightly different, right? You would have to create a social hangout that's better than theirs, right?
This is really cool. I I think I could talk to you for hours, but I think we got through about like 2 questions on my list.
Right.
And there's something I really want to get to before we finish, and that's Coffee with Cross. So one of the reasons why I kind of spotted you and was like, I've got to have Chris on the show is because I wanted to ask you about Coffee with Cross. How about you describe it? Like what is Coffee with Cross?
So Coffee with Cross is a weekly show that's minimum 1 hour. And I like to equate it to when you go to like an amusement park and you see somebody making funnel cakes.
Okay.
Through the window. That's the show. It's me making video games and hanging out with people that I know and friends that are interested in how to make video games, right? And their level of involvement comes from whatever they bring to it. So I've got 3 or 4 diehard weeklies that show up in my chat room, and they started out because the initial idea for the show was I was going to teach the QA guys at work how to use Unity.
And just to explain, this is on Twitch, right?
It's on Twitch,
right,
yes.
So
yes.
It's filmed live. It's an hour or more, and people just kind of drop in and tune in, right?
Yeah, and like I said, you'll see some regulars. Mm-hmm. There's like 5 or 6 regulars that are there every week. But I know there are more lurkers out there who don't interact. Mm-hmm. But I really do the show for the regulars because they're there, they're interacting, they ask questions, they see me make stuff. They're like, oh, how'd you do that? Or that's a neat way to do it. But the other part of this show, and like I said, there is a teaching aspect. It originally started with teaching our testers Unity, mm-hmm. Right? But I knew that some people would weed out. Like only the people who really wanted to either hang out or just have a good time learning some stuff or not learning stuff would be there. But I had a show a few weeks back with a friend of mine, Josh, who I'm mentoring through his own games. And basically we shared, instead of sharing my screen, we shared his screen, and I did the sort of creative director side of things of like, okay, show me your stuff. Like, what's this? What's that? Okay. You have some paperwork to do. Here's your homework assignment. And then that was the show that week, right? And so basically it's less about, back to the funnel cake analogy, it's less about me teaching lessons and it's more about just look at the process. Here's the process. Like the process is different depending on what you want to do week to week.
So,
right.
So just to make sure everyone gets it, maybe everyone does, but so you've got Unity open on your screen and maybe you got your webcam on. So people can see you talking, and so everyone's looking at your screen and they're watching, and you're describing the game that you're building, and then you're building it live, and playing it so they can
yes.
see what they're making.
And in fact, almost everything that I build on the show, I don't work on except on camera.
Okay.
So there's no gaps in the progression,
right? And it's not like here's one I made earlier, and
Absolutely. And in fact, part of that is what it's allowed me to include in the show is I make mistakes, right? And problem solving through those mistakes is actually the show.
Okay, cool.
It's not a step-by-step, this is how you make this kind of thing. It's a, you know what? I'm just going to go. We're going to make mistakes, and then I am going to logically pull myself out of these mistakes.
I think I'm a programmer, and a lot of programming is just kind of like, oh, that's not working, and I've got to work out why. It's all it's heavily problem solving.
Right.
Actually, and coming up with names for stuff is another thing. It's like, what should I call this thing? That seems to take up a lot of time. And then
right, it can't be food.
Yeah. And then the actual bit where it's like, I'm going to come up with this clever programming architecture, of how I'm going to come at this problem. It's kind of quite a small part of it. So yeah, it's like, making mistakes and working through them is the thing that you're doing. I think, for a lot of people that are outside, that don't program or, use Unity and build stuff, they're like, oh, I can't do that because I don't know how to do that. But it's not like, the Matrix, we plug in a cable and we just, we know Kung Fu
right.
now. And, we just suddenly like bust out this game with no mistakes. It's like, that is entirely not what it's like. It is just constant learning and problem solving. And And
Right.
so what you're demonstrating, is, and you probably wouldn't buy the funnel cake if making a funnel cake was so difficult and trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah,
These
right.
grotesque
Sure.
blobs.
Right. I might, but somebody else might not.
Yeah. So I think what you're showing is partly, technical of like, okay, here's how you use the tool. But then it's also what you're teaching is just kind of mindset of like, here's how you go about making something when you don't know how to make it.
Right. Yeah, that's basically it. And I switched over to a visual scripting language, right? So so basically my logic you can follow,
Kind
right?
of like a Unreal Kismet, or kind of.
Yeah, like just like old school Kismet.
Okay, so like
So
dragging boxes together. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so like I've got a couple episodes where I sort of explain how that system works. Where like, look, when you get in trouble, you can come in here and you can look at how it works and this, that, and the other thing. And then I was like, Ben, that it usually comes out to, and when in doubt, hit play. Did it work or not? Right? Did it do what you wanted it to do? And so like the journey, I mean, it's been 32 weeks now. The journey has been interesting for me because it is always learning. I've learned different ways to do the things that I probably would have done differently in the first couple of weeks, right? But that's kind of part of why I want to do the show. Is it's more about the journey and the problem solving and the step by step sort of nature of it than getting to the destination, right?
In some ways, I think we're kindred spirits because like I've got the Jolly Good Jobs website, and I wake up at like 6 a.m. and I've got like two options. I can lie in bed, which is cool. I love lying in bed. Or I can jump out of bed and go and, build more of the website and fix problems in that while everybody else is asleep.
Right.
And I've been doing it like over a year now, and I keep doing that. I mean, I think what it is I love the process of it, and I get like a bit of a kick of enjoyment when I add a new feature and then I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's that one's good. Kind of.
Right.
So like. You just done like, was it episode 32 you just did?
Yeah.
So, it's kind of the same thing for you. It's Saturday morning, you're waking up. Maybe it's not the best morning, but you're going to like jump out of bed and go, okay, I'm now going to go live in front of the world looking like, it's Saturday morning.
Right.
And, put myself through this kind of like tough learning process. What makes you keep on doing this week after week after week?
So I'd like to pat myself on the back for being a little smart about it. So there's a couple of different things. One, there is a social pressure because I do have 4 or 5 regulars that are always there. I feel like I would let them down if I didn't go on. In fact, I feel guilty today for taking Labor Day weekend off.
Shame on you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But it's basically, I realize that I need to allow for that as well, right? But the other part of that, so there's a social pressure built in for myself. There's I feel like I'm doing a service, which is also a social pressure of like, look at the process. It's not easy, and when I make mistakes, and like it took a lot of squashing my own ego at first, because like anytime you think about a camera is on, you want to have the show, and you want to do everything correct and all of that stuff. And like it took a good month and a half to get to the point where I was like, I'm going to do it this way this week, and this is how it works. And it is an interesting sort of thing, because some weeks I am on the ball. Uh-huh. It is like bang, 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 bang. I've been thinking about it for 3 days. I know how to solve these problems. I figured it out. There was a problem last week. Let's revisit that, and we go. And some mornings I wake up, the coffee hasn't kicked in yet, and I'm like, where were we again? The other piece of this is nobody is going to make the games that I want to make or pay for them until I decide to make them. And so now I have a weekly hour that I'm working on the stuff that I want to make.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right. So I've gotten a lot farther 1 hour at a time every week than I've gotten with, okay, this weekend, I'm going to sit down and bang it out for 8 hours.
Right.
Right. Like just chipping away 1 hour at a time, I'm slowly solving the problems that I was like, that, from a forethought standpoint, seem like they're going to be difficult. Right. But just sitting down and doing 10 push-ups,
yeah,
you just you figure it out in the moment, you know?
I totally agree. Like, you know, I've done projects in the past and I'll start with this enthusiasm and then the enthusiasm goes away and gradually, like, I'm just like, I don't think I'll bother working on this project anymore. And what I worked out, like 1 or 2 projects ago was that's not the decision that you make at the beginning of like, am I going to do this thing is not, do I think this is a cool project? What I make myself agree to is I set myself an amount of time, and right now it's 8 hours a week. I say I track by the minute. Like I started at 8:03, and then I note down the time I finish, and I add it up, and I do 8 hours a week or more. I'm allowed to do more. And at the start of the project, you know, when I started making the Jolly Good Jobs, I said, am I going to work on this project for at least 2 years? And am I going to do 8 hours a week every week? And I actually like waited several weeks before answering that. I was like, man, that's kind of a big question. You know, it's not quite, should I get married? But it's, you know, it's like, that's a lot of work, you know?
Yeah.
And what I committed to, and when I decided to do it, what I committed to was, yes, I'm going to do that time. And it doesn't have to, you know, success for me is just completing that time. Like if I do 8 hours a week, I'm like, yep, cool. I did my 8 hours. And it's not like, I didn't make $1 million, you know, or I don't have 100,000 viewers, or visitors to the site. So, you know, I'm a failure or something. It's like, no, and just that, the power of just kind of committing to doing an amount of time every week at anything, whether you want to like, you know, learn to knit or, you know, be an author or whatever it is. And it might seem like a really small amount, like, I can only manage half an hour, you know. But sure. You can, you know, you know, when I was younger, again, I wasn't much of an English student and books would scare me because I'd look at just the thickness of the books, like, and I'd be like, I could never read that. And now, you know, I read to my son and every night we read for, you know, 20, 30 minutes and, you know, I'll be reading the book. We get through these giant books and it's funny, like I'm now, you know, middle-aged and I'm like, you know, like, so that's how you read big books, you know?
Right. Yeah. No. And it's interesting because like, I mean, I took up golf about 1.5 years ago. Exactly for that reason. I wanted something that I could commit to weekly. And I started golf before I started Coffee Across. And like, just because I wanted something that wasn't games, that had a very hard skill ceiling, right? That I could like, so that I knew there's no way I was going to be good in one session, right? Like I was like, I know that the path to success in golf is to consistently practice a bunch, whether like I have a good day out or not, it doesn't matter. It's all stepping towards the way. Right. And, you know, it takes time. I'm getting there. My own brain gets in the way. Right. But then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do that with Coffee Across every Saturday. I don't care if anybody shows up or not. I can, whatever. I'll put a troll. I don't even need to like, actually, that's why Brian is there is originally I needed the crutch. Yeah. Well, exactly. He's my built-in troll. I needed the crutch of talking to somebody because the conversation I felt like was important. The explaining why I was doing something as opposed to how, was interesting. But like now there are weekends when he's not around and I just do it because I know that somebody's going to watch it at some point. The other part of that is I archive everything to YouTube. So you can watch all past 3,200 hours of whatever, right? If you want, it's a long slog. I will eventually go back and edit those down to more interesting bits and pieces, right? But actually, I've got a couple. I'll show you. I'll send you some links after we go off the air. But that I've cut down to like 2 minutes, right? Like super fast speed. Like here's me working in keynotes. Here's me doing this part of the design process, right? But yeah, the focus of the show is like every weekend. Let's figure out why something is working.
You know, one of the things that amused me when I was watching the show, your show, was there's a few parts here that's like you've woken up, it's Saturday morning, you've just had a strong cup of coffee, you've got to go to the restroom at some point, and you're live on Twitch. So I just find it amusing that like there's parts of the show where there's just an empty chair. You know, and it's like, what's going on? Oh, I get it. You know, if you skip ahead and you land in that moment, you're like, where's he gone? What? It's like,
what's
right.
going on?
He's gone to play Words with Friends in the bathroom. or Threes, sorry.
Well, it's interesting because, like, you know, successful Twitch casters cast all day.
Wow.
All day, right? It's a super long format, and they don't necessarily archive everything. They go through and then they cut it up into YouTube videos or whatever. But like, I've picked a hard way to do Twitch, which is I'm only going to do a couple hours a week every week consistently, right? It's difficult sometimes. You're like, oh my god, I've got to go to the bathroom, right? But I did figure out a way to put a sign up, but the guys who are really successful with Twitch have like really crazy rigs, and I wanted to keep it really simple. You know, like there's no costume, there is a costume. I always show up in my bathrobe, right? And like and try to keep it really chill, like really relaxed. But at some point, yeah, the realities of the situation are you're like, okay, well, I'm going to hang a sign that says back in 5. Right? It really is the funnel cake maker. Like back in 5.
Yeah,
like,
that's one funnel cake I don't need to see made.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Chris.
So
it's been absolutely fantastic having you on. I think I'm going to have you on again because there's so much we didn't get to.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If people want to check out Coffee with Cross and learn some Unity and up their skills and just see you in a bathrobe, how should they do that?
Twitch.tv/coffeewithcross, or coffeewithcross.com actually has all the links.
All right.
And YouTube, like, I mean, it's basically Coffee with Cross at all the different places.
Okay. But so,
youtube.com/c/coffeewithcross. Like,
okay.
It's super simple. All one word though, no spaces.
Okay, coffeewithcross.com. That's the one I got, and that's got links to everywhere. And you broadcast live on Saturday mornings.
Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Right
Thanks
on.
very much, Chris. That was really good.
Thank you. It's always fun. I love yammering on.
All right. I'll catch up with you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. If so, please subscribe and tell your friends. You can see the show notes and more online at jollygoodjobs.com/show. If you'd like to get in touch or be on the show, you can mail me at mark@jollygoodjobs.com. The show's excellent intro music is by Lazyitis. To find his work, go to soundcloud.com and search Lazyitis. The intro voice and audio production were by Garner Knutson. The Jolly Good Show comes to you from jollygoodjobs.com, where your game studio can post its open positions for free. Toodle pip.